Tim. Welcome to the Bitcoin Edge.
Good morning, Paula. Great to see you.
Great to see you. So I wanted to have you on because I know that you have had a very successful career and you're a good friend, and I wanted to hear a little bit more about you. So let's start at the beginning. Where were you born and where are you living now?
I was born in Tripoli, Libya, and traveled the world. So my parents moved all the time. So we went from Libya to Trinidad to Cardón in Venezuela, and then Caracas in Venezuela, and then Cape Town. And then I eventually went to the UK to study at university and lived there the majority of my career, I guess. And I've now ended up, moving between places. I moved between London, Mallorca, where I am now, and Cape Town. That's the aim. But with my main base here in Mallorca.
Wow, that's really an exciting life so far.
A bit of a move. We actually counted the number of countries we traveled to for Ella, my daughter, and we got to 93. So it's a bit of a drive, the travel thing. Yeah, it gets into you.
So when you started out, were you always driven to succeed?
I don't think when I was at university I had a natural entrepreneur character. And I think a lot of people are born entrepreneurs and they love it. It's just part of their nature. With me, I saw an opportunity when I was about 25. I was working with a very stuffy energy group, which was headed by the former oil minister Zaki Yamani. And I saw that the way they were doing things, and I saw an opportunity to do it better. And I really just had an ambition to support my family. That was it. It wasn't anything too great. And then over the years, so I started when I was 25, which was quite young, I guess, to start your own business. And then that just grew and grew and grew. And over the years was a bit of a roller coaster. We had some fantastic years, but it was largely oil and gas related, so it was very influenced by the oil price. And there were a few crashes in the oil price that were hard to deal with. But I sold that company just prior to COVID. A year before I sold it, I started my next company, which was in hydrogen, as you know, that's sustainable energy. And that has just been sold a few weeks ago. So I'm in the rare state at the moment that for the first time in my life, I'm not running since I was 25, not running a business. So looking for the next chapter, but that's been the sort of career journey.
And are you enjoying your retirement so far?
I don't like the word retirement. my break, I think. Yes, I am. I mean, actually, we only completed mid-May, so it's only really been a very short time. And after the sale, there was a lot of looking at investments and allocating the money and sorting all the sort of detail out and actually learning to do all of the things that I had never done when I was heading up a company, because people would do them for me. Silly things like sort of setting up and structuring emails and setting up bank accounts, and actually really moving to Mallorca more permanently has taken a bit of time to get into it. And it's a great place. We've got a great sort of piece of land which I can show you on the phone later. And so I've been sort of getting the olive trees going and the fruit trees and the vegetable patch. Well, not me personally, I can't claim to do, but sort of sinking into that way of life.
Did you have a vision for that? This is where you wanted to be, is what you wanted to achieve, or it just kind of happened?
Not at all. Not at all. I just gave 100% all the way through. My first business, I think, was very much a lifestyle business. It was to provide for my children, pay their schooling, and to give us a good life. My second business, when I set it up, was very much structured in a way to sell. And there's a big difference. So by that stage, I knew exactly what the buyers wanted. I knew exactly how to structure it. I knew how to tick all the boxes to get the highest multiple upon sale. And so that was a very, very different thing. I had ideally wanted to wait a few working on it, but we just got so many great offers that I would have been foolish to turn it down. So I've sort of been left at a stage where I think I'm too young not to work. And I like working, and I like having a purpose and something to fulfill me. I'm very fortunate now I don't have to work. So what people say is when you sell a company, you should really leave it 6 months and just sort of sink in and not rush into the first thing that comes your way. So talking to some private equity funds, I'm talking to different groups where I might be a non-exec director. I might, a very small chance, set up another company to set up and sell. And then I'm looking as well to both of my Ella and Max. They're at an age where, they might like to do their own thing. So I'd love to be able to set them up because I think that's a great gift to give somebody.
Well, you talked about two things that really stood out to me there. One is having a purpose no matter what stage you're in.
Definitely.
I think a lot of people want to achieve financial freedom, but even when you do, having a purpose is really important.
Absolutely. And I think when you have had a purpose, you've had such a large driver in your life doing things, I think it's important that you then can continue to do that. And it was very funny actually because it was a bit like falling off a cliff. I went from at the end of the sale, it was very, very stressful and intense with emails flooding in and calls and getting the whole thing done and making sure that it was all right, to with the sale went through, and part of the deal of the sale was I would not go with it to the new buyers because that was something I did not want. It went from being totally my responsibility and doing the sale sort of virtually overnight to suddenly the emails didn't come in and the calls didn't come in. So that's been a bit of an adjustment. But I'm actually love reading. As you know, I've really enjoyed spending some time doing some podcasts, some reading, and just feeling fantastic in myself again, which has been great. But the purpose is very important, and I'll find something.
The other thing you said, that as a man you wanted to provide for your family. And for me, that was never my goal when I was younger. I was kind of told, go to the US, find a rich man and get married. I do think for women that's often, it's not less today, but it's a reason why I went into health first. So my health was important. And then later in life, I realized, okay, but I also need to get my finances in order. So that kind of led me down the road to Bitcoin because, this is a Bitcoin, podcast, but everything in our lives lead us to a certain place. And I want to get there with you, but just to tell you a little bit about why I started this. So once I got on that financial journey, I started learning about how our money system works. And I was quite shocked after I read the Bitcoin Standard and the history of it. But more importantly, for people who do start late or any time, Bitcoin was a way for me to get ahead. Presuming everything goes according to plan, by putting some of my wealth into Bitcoin can possibly stay in a vehicle that's going to go up for the rest of our lives rather than our fiat money, which is headed down because of our government's printing. But I wanted to hear a little bit about you, how you got into and heard about Bitcoin.
I got into Bitcoin relatively late, I think. I mean, I certainly know people who got in a lot earlier than me and did extremely well. I got into it when it was already being talked about as something that was on a positive trajectory, that it was it was a conversation point when you went out for meals, and I started looking into it, and I've done very well in it, out of it actually, which has been great. The way that I've approached it is to buy it and almost forget that it's there. So I don't trade it, I don't buy it, I don't sell it, it's sitting there. Ella actually has managed the whole thing. So I'm not too worried about a little dip or a little going up and down. I mean, occasionally it's nice to see it, or you're reading the Financial Times and you see, there's been a big surge in Bitcoin, and it's good. But that won't mean I sell it. I'll just, I'll keep it. And I'm seeing it as very much a longer term investment.
And so for you, it was just like you put an amount that because you think it has potential.
I think it has potential. I have seen people who've suffered because of when it dropped and put a lot in, and I don't want that risk. I believe, I read a lot of economics, and I believe if you have a diversified portfolio, that is the best thing to do. And I certainly think that Bitcoin is part of a diversified portfolio.
Yes.
Along with everything else, with trusts, investment trusts, and property. I think if you diversify, you're never going to be hit really badly by something. And I see a positive outcome for Bitcoin. Certainly it's a lot more positive now than it was maybe 5-6 years ago, when there was still a lot of variables that could have gone wrong and could have derailed it. I don't think that's going to happen now.
Yeah, well, and now we have, presidential candidates talking about it, like Trump speaking
Absolutely.
at the Bitcoin convention, and also Larry Fink and people who own, BlackRock, and even Fidelity recommends their clients now having, I think that's between 2 and 5%. So it's definitely more mainstream.
100%, definitely.
Yeah.
No, Trump's already, I think there was a bit of a surge in Bitcoin because they're now predicting that he'll be president, and that saw a sort of surge in the price.
Yeah, it did. So what I didn't say about my story is, so I've been in real estate, as you know, for a while, and it kind of didn't feel like it was giving me enough purpose. I do like helping people, but there's part of me that also wants to come into this because I like talking to people about Bitcoin. I like learning from different people and about how they achieve financial freedom. And then also, I went to stay in Zimbabwe for 2 months, and I really want to help people there because I think people in those type of countries are affected the most by this money printing. I mean, we all know Zimbabwe is very much affected, but part of the problem with the people there is they don't make enough money. Bitcoin is for people who've got a little bit extra to save. Yes, you can work in Bitcoin. Yes, they can use it as a payments rail, but it's hard to save when you're making such a little bit amount of money. And absolutely. I don't know how to reach those people. I know a few people there, so I just decided I'm going to do this podcast, and whoever I can reach, great. But it is going to be part of the future. It's a more secure payments rail. For people who live in high inflation areas, it's really useful. I would say for very, high net worth people, yes, it's a nice little diversification, but it might not be life changing. But there are some people it can be life changing. Like for me, rather than keep going in a career I don't like, I can spend time in Bitcoin and save in Bitcoin with the hope that in the future I'm making the right choice, and if not, I will adjust. But I do believe in it. So
I think there are a lot of people who maybe have heard of Bitcoin, but they are not enormously financially savvy, and they don't know the details of it. And I think talking to a few people here in New York, one of the things that would be really useful from a podcast like this is actually looking at the risks of investing in Bitcoin. Because I always think if you're going into any business or any investment, the main thing is to understand the risks, what the risks are. And then if you're comfortable with those risks, then you go ahead. And I think a lot of people don't really understand what the risks are or what the upside is, to be honest with you. But that is sort of demystifying that, I think, would be really useful for a lot of people.
Yes, well, that's a really good point, because I got in 2017 at the very top, and then it proceeded to crash, 80%, and some of my investment I sold at the very bottom, like everybody does, and then I decided in 2020, when COVID hit and we had time, I started studying it, and it's really important for people in Bitcoin to understand the cycle. Because for 15 years the cycle has been similar, and so right now we're in a bull market, but it might change going forward. The more people who adopt it, it might not go up and down as much, but for now you've got to be ready for 70-80% corrections, and that's hard on some people.
Yeah.
And nature, and they've shown that, our human nature is to buy the top, sell the bottom for most people. So you've got to really learn that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So for you, is there anything interesting you're reading or working on at the moment?
I'm reading a great book at the moment, which is sitting right here, and it is called Same as Ever.
Ah.
And it's basically people try and predict the future and make their decisions based on predictions. But actually, this book is saying that it's very cyclical, like you just said, in Bitcoin. But if we look back over the history, there are a lot of things that we can learn from the past, and then that are very likely to happen again. And it's extremely good, actually. A very good read.
Well, that sounds great. It reminds me of that often when we predict the future, we predict from where we are now. And things like AI are exponential, and we can't even imagine how it's going to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a great book to read on AI, Scary Smart by Mo Gawdat. It's fantastic. It's an area actually that really interests me, and it's going to, certainly in 10 years' time, I think I think the people who are still working are going to be working on a different playing field. I'm hoping that I'm going to be running around in the garden here in Mallorca and in the forest and avoid it, but let's see.
Me too, and traveling the world, right?
Exactly.
Well, thanks so much, Tim.
No,
I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank you so much, Paula.